Oh. My God, I can't stop. The words are just pouring out of me. Hey, come see what I've been working on. I call it Spaceshire 7.
Nice. It's like a fake place you made?
It's a medieval sci-fi universe adaptable to TV, movies, toys, games, and mobile apps. I threw together a 2,000-page treatment last night, and I just figured the hell with it. Why not build a scale model and record voices for all the characters? Watch.
To all remaining faithful citizens of the Citadel, the Bastion, and the Prophet who guides, this is Librarian Mrs. Wright with a final urgent message to all who would hear it. The Prophet has fallen from the throne that binds the Forge, and he has left it to me to give you his final message.
Wolves hiding nearby, whispering do or die around me.
Wherever fate may take you next, remember where you came from. Remember those who paved the way. The following will be the last transmission on this station.
You say your last
Good luck to you all, and remember, in this life or the next, the Prophet guides.
Part 1 The Zeitgeist. Millennia after the event known as Kazus' Folly, the floating Netherese city of Thultantha returned from the plane of Shadowfell to the material plane, only to find the great Netherese nations on the continent of Faerun extinct. King Timon Tanthal, aka Lord Shadow, once a human and talented wizard, now a twisted dark shadow sorcerer, flew his Shade City over the city of Cormyr to lay siege upon the Elvish nations, and steal the city's Mythiar orb that was hidden at the deepest heart of Cormyr's inner sanctums. Master Wizard Elminster Ormar, a champion of Mystra, the goddess of magic, stood to defend the city of Cormyr and its most powerful artifact. Although Shadowfell energy made void the magics of Mystra's weave, Elminster carried within him the most coveted, silver fire, to bring Mystra's light to the darkest reaches of the planar universes. Lord Shadow was defeated with silver fire, but the floating city's magic was tied to his life force. The Shade City fell, and collapsed into Cormyr's Mythiar orb, causing a planar collision that slowly spilled the Shadowfell realm into the material plane. This disaster divided linear histories into a multiverse of chaos that not even the cosmic divine could contain. Some evil and chaotic gods took advantage of this opportunity to manipulate the world to their will, while others blamed Mystra, and her gift of magic to humankind, for being at the center of every man-made disaster. The gods went to war, their blood spilled to the material realms, opening the cosmic rifts that began the Fourth Era, known as the Spell Plague. Part 2 Roc the Casbah. 2 years after the collision of the two realms, an aristocrat trader named Pt3 Roc and his lover Elizabeth were obsessed with mastering the Spell Plague rift magics to create portals for teleportation travel. This was a vision to bring about peace to all the kingdoms of humankin across Faerun. It would make conventional travel obsolete, and not only afforded to the rich and powerful, but to anyone and everyone who sought peace. This singularity of technology would be the end of all war and famine. The Roc family's wealth and success came from a jinn which they enslaved for generations.
Easy does it, don't force it. The water ripples if you stir it. Don't touch it, and it will call. 这个世界会忘记你，但我不会。这个世界会忘记你，但我不会。这个世界会忘记你，这个世界会忘记你，但我不会。
While Sibitry stayed in the city of Waterdeep to make political connections, Elizabeth went to Cormier to fetch the Jinn's lamp hidden in their palace vault. Little did she know that Cormier was in ruin, the gods were at war, and the Shadowfell was spilling into the material realm from that very epicenter. After months of no contact with Elizabeth, Sibitry grew paranoid of his business partners who took advantage of his wealth. Sibitry chose 4 warriors of no nobility to be his trusted bodyguards, as they set out for a 1,000-mile trek to locate Elizabeth at his palace in Cormier. Their names were Io Graves the Guilty, Kn Pepper the Marooned, Isildra the Fated One, and Bare Morninglord the Sender. They are now known to the initiated as the Gatekeepers. Along the journey, Isildra was killed in ritualistic murder by a hag.
That little whore! Her cursed blood! She slew my sisters! I am alone! 'Tis your doing! You die tonight!
And her soul was sent to the far realms by her companion, Bare the Sender. Her will was so strong that she became a Cthulhu-like lesser aberration. For eons she swam through time and space until she found her way to the planar crossing of Cormier. By the time she arrived, she had forgotten herself or even why she was so obsessed with getting there in the first place. She had become something otherworldly. Along the journey, the Gatekeepers met Elminster Ormar, and joined forces to penetrate the corrupted Mythiar orb that was spilling Shadowfell energy into the material world. When they arrived at the palace vault, they learned that Elizabeth was a blue dragon disguised as a beautiful elf, and was corrupted by Shadowfell darkness, transforming into a black shadow dragon, having no recognition of her lover Sibitry. In a strange twist of fate, Pt3 Roc resorted to cowardice, self-preservation, and the greater good. He used his last wish to remove himself, the Jinn, and his beloved Elizabeth from the fray of the planar collision, abandoning those who spent months to serve his quest. The Gatekeepers, and Elminster Ormar, were lost in the abyss of the Shadowfell. Elminster used silver fire to transform into a dark star, to preserve himself in time and space until he could plan his escape.
The dream continues to haunt me, old friend. It always starts with a journey to a distant land. struggle. Endure.
The prophecies do not
We're
lie.
not alone.
You cannot survive the struggle.
What sort of mess have you gotten yourself into now, Elisa?
You mean, what sort of mess have you got me into? Who would have ever guessed you'd become the sort of man who makes such dangerous friends? I went for 6 months without shoes once. Remember? Amazing how the soles of one's feet can toughen up or go soft, depending on their environment. Just like the other sort of sole. Do you remember what happened to them? My shoes?
You gave them to me.
When I first found you, I made a vow that I'd save you if I could.
And you did.
Did I?
What are you up to, Elisa?
Saving the world.
Our world is long past saving. I thought that was always your point.
But I didn't say our world. Goodbye, Wolf.
Lita? Lita?
There I find a city in flames. Streets choked with corpses. Unthinkable destruction. I witness senseless slaughter. Brother against brother. Pure hatred.
The abandoned gatekeepers were corrupted by Isildra the Aberration, descending into madness, until they too became something otherworldly. The slave Jinn known as Roc was now free from his ties to the Rocmu family, and it turned all its hatred, and all its ire, to the entire material plane. Floods and natural disasters reshaped Fidon as the Jinn sought to wash the world clean. The gods were too busy with their war to intervene. Millions died in the pandemonium as entire cities laid waste at the bottom of rivers and oceans. One fabled hero, a Triton warrior named Bothra, descended into the flooded cities to defeat the Jinn, and was victorious. Part 3, The Wandering Star. In time, Fidon, now mostly covered in water, was beginning to heal, and evolve into a sailor's world of pirates, fleets, and mercenary armadas. The continent of Fidon was reduced to about 10% landmass, separating the nations of the world into isolated highlands. In the depths of the oceans, Bothra the Triton was cloned for generations by his tribe in the event of another calamity. Years after the Great Flood, Pt3 Roc had a breakthrough discovery to unlock the enigma of gate teleportation. To achieve his dream, he would need to return to the collision site of the Mythiar Orb, inside the Cormyr ruins, where the Shadowfell had begun to spread into the material realm. Elizabeth the Mad Black Dragon had been imprisoned for centuries by Pt3. She held within her heart an attuned connection to the Mythiar orb. And so, Pt3 returned to the Shadowfell collision to sacrifice his lover's soul in order to gain control of the orb. With his lover's mind now lost, his allies betrayed and abandoned, and his dynasty destroyed, Pt3 had nothing left to lose. This quest was to succeed, or die trying. Laying in wait at the dark Mythiar orb was the aberration Isildur, the corrupted gatekeepers, and the dark star of Elminster Ormar. Sacrificing Elizabeth was the final key needed for Pt3 to unlock the power of the Netherese Mythiar orb. When Pt3 achieved this, Isildur was released from the orb to become her former self once more, a beautiful female elf monk. Only now, she was an awakened soul, with eons of contemplation across the cosmos, deified, and ascended. Aside from her elvish physique, she was nothing of her original id. Her memories were tied to the orb's nature, as was Elizabeth. In short, Isildur and Elizabeth's souls became one, sharing a chiral connection.
Wow! Whew. You still got time for that movie?
Yes. Time. I had nothing but time. Endless time. At first it was madness, then enlightenment, then madness again. But perhaps it was a gift. I could see the life of time. And as I watched the life of time in all its fleeting, terrible light, I wondered, had I lived? Was I just the object in another story? Was that all I ever was? Could I be more? I had nothing but time, and still no answer. Time without purpose is a prison. I have glimpsed into the mind of eternity, perhaps the mind of God, and found nothing but silence. I think we should just be friends.
Oh, yeah, I get that. Guess we missed our moment.
Yes, but there will be more. For both of us. Goodbye, Morty.
Hey, how's it going?
Fuck off, I'm a time god!
The dark Mythiar orb then released the Shadowfell's grip on the material world. Elminster the Dark Star crashed to the Earth. The crater it created is now known as Elder Bay. Elminster retook his human form, but was never quite the same. He became an insane old prophet, blathering cosmic truths about a coming age to end all ages. After much destruction brought onto the world from his errors, Pt3 finally stood in two places at once, holding the keys to the gates, but if only for a short moment. As soon as Isildur the Fated One was released from the Shadowfell void magic, she murdered Pt3 in a fit of rage from Elizabeth's pain and insanity. Isildur took the key to the gate. This key is an echo shard of the dark Mythiar orb. Looking into it was like peering through a window into another universe. Thus, this key to teleport was called a window. Self-aware as an infant at first, the window grew over time to become the smartest hive mind sentience in the known multiverse, a conscious, self-aware, and ever-evolving encyclopedia known as the Machine, or to some who guard it, Mulligan. Through Isidra's body, Elizabeth's willpower continued Pt3's dream, and established soul gates into the farthest reaches of Faerun. The world was at peace.
Off the crater, like the prophets once said.
Part 4. The Happening. The window was already tied to so many minds that had melded to it in the Shadowfell. The window contained within it the supernatural cosmic knowledge of Isildur the Ascended One. Each window was not only a key for travel, but a wellspring of sacred knowledge about mysticism, the far realms, and the divine. In time, this singularity of shared cosmic technology allowed artificers to replicate the window into a more streamlined and accessible version of itself. This device is known as a MacGuffin. It was truly an age of comfort and enlightenment. Old Mythiar orbs reignited by the machine were now a nuclear deterrent behind every throne of every kingdom. But with each frivolous use of the window, the shards of the dark Mythiar orb spread across the world and weakened the planar separation between the Shadowfell and the material plane. Nobody saw what was coming. Nobody, except the prophet Elminster, and Isildra the Fated One.
Suffering surrounded me until my turn comes. They burn my eyes, break my bones. I awaken in terror.
Isildra planted gates all over the world to draw the far realms closer to the material planes. Elminster the prophet tried to warn the kings of such dangerous and unearned gifts. However, only the Orc King listened. The Orc King, whose name has been stricken from record, was considered an outsider king by his contemporaries, even during the Age of Peace. The prophet went to Cormyr once again along with the orcs to build docks at Elder Bay. When the teleportation gates went wild and abominations poured into the world, there were no forces large enough to defend. It was a massacre. Ships fled their lands, looking for somewhere that was free from the wild gates. But the land of Faerun was saturated with gates, and windows, and MacGuffins. Word got out that someone built docks at Old Cormyr, in Elder Bay, and was taking refugees who swore fealty to the Orc King. Many did not want to submit to orcs, but desperation formed a frail alliance. Taking root and spreading out, the orcs rebuilt the fortress citadel palace of Rockmoo, which is now known as the last bastion of humankind. Among the refugees was Isildra the Fated One. Isildra changed her name to Isabella, Isildra plus Elizabeth, a fitting name to suit both souls within her. She convinced the Orc King to take her as an advisor in his court. The prophet knew Isabella's true identity but remained silent. Their connection to the Shadowfell required no words. There was no hatred, no love, just the shades of darkness that they shared for so long together. The prophet, Elminster, and the Ladybomb, Isabella, together again by a twisted fate.
You think me mad, old friend, but I know these dreams. They tell of the future. Hell is coming, brother. Hell is coming.
The dwarves went into the bogs west to irrigate and build a bunker system spanning for miles, and offering stone, water, and food supply to the bastion. The elves went east and deforested their sacred woodlands of Cormyr, offering wood to the fortress walls and fleet vessels. The human barbarians and druids went north to guard the mountain pass, while the wizards went into the Cormanthor crypts to raise an army of the dead. The other races were a labor force, provided culture and recreation, vices and addictions, and repopulated the bastion with many half-breeds and mutants, such as tieflings and Genasi. The kings of the old world fell one by one, deploying their Mythiar orb weapons, and glassing their kingdoms with the arcane fire of 1,000 suns. The waters of Elder Bay receded, rendering the shipping canals useless, and the irradiated weather brought famine and natural disasters. The ships would be beached to become slums for the poorest refugees of the Citadel. Time was running out for the Bastion, and the city was on the brink of a race war to see which noble house would ascend the throne. To stall, occupy and appease the common rabble, the Orc King promised the people that he'd build an ark, a massive spelljammer ship greater than any ship, in order to sail the planar multiverse and find a world without gates, and windows, and planar hellscapes. However, the noble houses were already vying for the throne. Part 6. The Last Stand of Humankind. Stubborn as those stripped of power often are, the Orc King wanted to deploy his Mythiar orb bomb, and burn the earth as the other kings did. Isabella and the Prophet came to a different conclusion. Within Isidra's soul was the infinite darkness of the Shadowfell, and her knowledge of the abyss. Within Elizabeth's soul was Symmetry's goal to see humankind safe, and at peace. Within Elminster Ormar, the silver fire of Mistra's chosen still burned within him, and that flame carried into any conceivable realm. Within the Orc King's Mythiar orb was enough power to sustain a city for generations. If the shards of the dark Mythiar orb were the gates that brought these monsters to the world, then the heart of Isabella was the key to repelling them. At the apex of the collapse, just as the planar monsters were about to breach the Bastion inner walls, Elminster the Prophet assassinated the Orc King with a silver fire coup d'etat after it was clear to everyone that the king refused to believe his walls had failed. Elminster then cast Isabella the Aberration into a magic circle, and used his silver fire to ignite a forge within her heart, and containing it within the Mythiar orb. He then contained the Mythiar orb within a dark star, imprisoning Isabella's form within 7 layers of cosmic runes. This forge ignited and cast a magic barrier around most of the inner city, sealing the citadel safely away from the decaying world. The names of the 7 runes are Of all the things the Prophet could see, he did not see that Isabella wanted this all along. The aberration within her craved to send souls to the far realm, just as she was sent so long ago by Bare Morninglord the Sender. It is in her design. It transcends personality or willpower. Isabella craved souls like the living crave air to breathe. And so the marriage of heart and mind, both secular and divine, became the forge that continues to protect the citadel, so long as souls are fed to her in an endless devouring of the world and its life force. To stop feeding the forge is to douse the silver flame, igniting the sleeping ladybomb within. With each use of the MacGuffin, With each gauntlet jump through the wild gates, Isabella's voice gets louder, and she calls to those who will listen.
and take you somewhere far away. I'm straight up villain, get no feeling, get no feeling. Straight up villain, get no feeling, get no feeling. But I'm dead, you know what's up in your head. Watch it fill you full of dread till you go.
Part 8. Souls of the Citadel. While no one in this tale is truly good or truly evil, two ideas persist. One is that of the crowned prophet, who has spent an eternity inside a dark star, waiting for an opportunity to present itself to free him of his prison from which he will never return. His path is to remain still, maintain existence, preserve the forge, appease its appetite, and bide time until a new age of enlightenment carries humankind forward. The prophet is patient. Some may say, immobilized, others, immovable. Some say, stagnant. Others say, stoic. But what better existence is there beyond the soul forge wall? The other is that of a trapped Isabella, stuck in a vault beneath the palace tower, who at one time swam freely through the cosmos for eons to become the fated one. Now she is an imprisoned tool meant to merely delay the inevitable. That all things must end, that everyone must die at some point, that our souls were never ours to begin with. Surrender to the Ladybomb. Surrender to oblivion. Part 9. Goat Tales of the Citadel.
Receiving tons of transmissions from you zone rats out there, spreading the truth like it was sour plum jam. Here's some of the reports from out in the wasteland, and to make the medicine go down just a bit easier, we got a nice heaping spoonful of party poison.
But a third idea has risen. The machine, Mulligan the Window, calls to another entity to save humankin and awake them from their comatose slumber. A gatekeeper Ifrit, who studies the power of blood, its control over mortals, and desires above all other things to be ruler over all living essence in the Citadel. Its name is NARRO. Some scholars of the Prophet believe NARRO to be the ascension of the original gatekeeper, Bare Morninglord the Sender. Some pirates of the Ladybomb believe NARRO to be Pt3 Roc, or rather the essence of Pt3's desire to control the planar gates and reunite with his lover Elizabeth. The Bothra Tritons think NARRO may be Rockmu the Jinn, who flooded the world, now too scared of the Tritons to try water again. Perhaps NARRO is none of these things. Just an outlier fringe elemental exploiting the chaos of the apocalypse. Regardless, people are looking for change. But at what cost is this salvation?
Why not be utterly changed into fire? Why not be utterly changed into fire? Why not be utterly changed into fire?
To all remaining faithful citizens of the Citadel, the Bastion, and the Prophet who guides, this is Librarian Mrs. Wright with a final urgent message to all who would hear it. The Prophet has fallen from the throne that binds the forge, and he has left it to me to give you his final message. Wherever fate may take you next, remember where you came from. Remember those who paved the way. The following will be the last transmission on this station. Good luck to you all, and remember, in this life or the next, the Prophet guides.
You played right into our hands. Did you really think that this job just fell out of the sky for you? No. This was a gift for us. You gathered them all together in one place, just like he asked you to. All of those little souls in one place. Just for us. A gift. Now we can do what we were created to do and be complete. I will make you proud, Daddy. Watch, listen, and be full.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name, but I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole, so don't keep the devil waiting, friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms, the way you lifted others into yours. And then, what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest. For you, and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends. For all of us.
We gotta get going.
Going? Where?
To Hartford, man. There's a book fair at the convention center, and George R.R. Martin will be there.
Who's that?
Game of Thrones, black shirts, dandruff, takes down more nerd shots than anyone around.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm gonna show him my models and pitch him Space Shire 7.
Okay, before we go, I should wet my eyes. There.